Good morning, good afternoon, whenever you are watching this. Welcome back to Starkey Farmstead. So my name is Samantha. I am the owner-operator of a 2-acre farmstead located here in Southeast Louisiana. I also just published a book with a friend of mine, Growing Under a Poisoned Sky. Maybe you've heard about weather modification or geoengineering, or like me, you live close to a hydrocarbon explosion or train derailment, and you're just curious, what is in the soil, water, and now my body? And how do I remediate that? That is what this book is, Growing Under a Poison Sky. I have one more signed book to auction off. If you're interested in that, look in the top of comments. Welcome back, friends and family of the internet and fellow watchers on the wall. Do I have a crazy video for you guys today? So most states offer a way to sign up for organ donation on your license, right? You go in to get your license renewed or to get your first one, and it says on the back, organ donator, yes or no. And you choose one. Please choose no. Not because you don't want to save a life, not because you don't want to help other people, but because right now across the world, scientists are petitioning higher courts to reevaluate what brain dead means. In other words, I need you to loosen it up a little. Give us a little, little more leeway in who we decide we're going to remove organs from. Why am I sharing this with you? Because not one, but two people recently in the United States woke up either in the process of having their organs removed or on the way into have them removed. And there's something very dark about these non-governmental organizations and nonprofits that are involved in the organ transplant business. They encourage surgeons to go forward, hospitals to continue, employees to do their job, even when the people prepping the comatose or brain dead person for surgery have reservations. When they call the organ transplant group, almost always they say the same thing: give them more medication and push forward. Something else I'm noticing as I'm researching this, they like to administer a drug that paralyzes the human body and then test to see if that person is brain dead. In other words, let's turn off the respirator and the machine that's breathing for them. If they don't breathe for themselves for 1 minute, we can go forward with the organ donation. But you've already medicated them. They're paralyzed or they're highly sedated. So either way, that person's going to struggle breathing because all of those medications are going to affect the diaphragm and your ability to go on your own. I'm just saying. I think this whole concept needs to be completely looked at again. And it's not to give these organizations less qualifications they have to surpass. In other words, more rights to end your life so that they can harvest you. You're not, friends and family of the internet, you're not an agricultural product. But to these people, you really are. You're just a commodity. And if they can't get something for you, you aren't worth much to them. By the way, YouTube does not pay me. My 46-year-old husband was diagnosed with a brain aneurysm. We have surgery scheduled in about 2 weeks. If you would please pray about rowing in our boat and supporting our channel so I can continue this while taking care of him and still be able to pay all of my bills. That would be beautiful. So this was 2017. This is a joint committee on foreign affairs and trade and defense, and it's talking about the organ harvesting going on in China. Why is that important, Sam? Well, I'm so glad you asked that question. Did all of you not see the president of China and Russia on the hot mic talking about organ transplant and basically immortality?
In our outpatient department that I have seen at least 3 children had a scar on their body, indicates the organ had been stolen. And in 1995, it comes to my turn to do it. It was a Wednesday. My two chief surgeons called me into the office and told me to assemble a team with capability of largest possible surgery and report to them next day morning. 9:30 next day, we met at the hospital gate and headed towards the Western Mountain execution ground, where I was told to wait for them until hearing the gunshots. After gunshots were heard, we rushed in. An armed officer directed us to the far right corner, where I can see a civilian-clothed man lying on the ground with a single bullet wound to his right chest. My chief surgeons then ordered and guided me, extracted the liver and two kidneys. The man was alive. He tried to resist my scalpel cut, but too weak to avoid my action. There was bleeding. He was still alive, but I didn't feel guilty. In fact, I didn't feel anything but like a full programmed robot doing its task.
That is so important. I didn't feel anything. I felt like a programmed robot doing my task. First, that's MK Ultra. Second, this is how people who participate in the black market of human trafficking body parts really feel. By the way, WHO, the World Health Organization, has claimed that over 10% of human trafficked people is for one reason: organ harvesting.
I thought I was carrying my duty to eliminate the enemy of the state. After operation, those chief surgeons took these organs with two strange-looking boxes, and they told me to take my team back to the hospital and remember there was nothing happened, and I followed order. We never talked about it. It is not acceptable that a normal buy one get one free shopping pattern can be seen in organ transplantation. Pre-date for your heart transplantation means that they make someone dead for you. Giving away organs to promote business means they have organ of plenty. Unlimited supply of organs only can be achieved if those organs are carried in the living body waiting to be taken on demand.
I hope all of you understood that. The only way to have an unlimited amount of organs is for those organs to stay in your body as a living being until they're ready to harvest them.
A news broke out last June that CCP is giving Uyghur people in Xinjiang free national health checkup with no explanation why. So we suspect that the CCP is building the national database for organ trade. It is also widely reported that CCP is carrying out DNA tests in the region under the glorified of improving the quality of the life of Uyghurs. And that is, I believe, it's a lie.
So we know that BlackRock bought all of that DNA from those different DNA places. Now, this is old. This was the video is 6 years old. I'm not sure when this was originally recorded, but if things like this bother you, this is graphic. So I'm just warning you.
We made a decision to repossess it because his check did not clear the bank. And so we sent the truck out to pick up the container.
I rolled out there and took the box up and started pulling it up. And it was so heavy, it's just it broke the winch.
And we couldn't get it off the trailer, so we had to leave it on the trailer because it was too heavy. So I was asked by Nick to have a crew go down and unload the container at the other yard.
I got a radio call that from Ron Gillette, the foreman, and he said the men were throwing up and there was something really wrong.
One of them fell down and hit me right in front of my feet. And it was opened up, and there it was. It was a mutilated body. And the more closer I looked at it, it was a human body.
And when I came to work the following day, I saw it myself. I couldn't believe it. And just little bitty babies, just all quarter pieces. Their heads chopped off, arms, legs, it just makes you sick to see something like that. Well, really.
So I will link all of this in description. Eventually, I would like YouTube to pay me. One, y'all get tired of me asking everyone donate $1, but I can't pay my bills if I don't get paid, folks. Understand this. There is, and there was an entire Senate House committee where they questioned what is Planned Parenthood doing with all these aborted fetuses, as they like to call them, which we all know it just means baby. And there's a black market for those things. And those people came across that. Now, researchers say there is evidence that consciousness continues even after clinical death. So here's the thing. They're trying to change the definition of clinical death to make it more flexible so they can get your organs easier. But doctors are proving that even if you're clinically dead, clinically brain dead, you're still in there. You, the person, you're still there. You're still there, friends and family. I can't say it enough. You're still there.
So what happens when we die? It's a question that humanity has wrestled with throughout history. But a new study conducted by NYU may have found some answers. Dr. Sam Parnia is the director of critical care and resuscitation research at NYU Langone School of Medicine, where he ran this study. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Parnia.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
What would you say? What actually happens when you're clinically dead?
When people die, essentially it's when the heart stops. So this has been going on for as far as we know, millennia, not longer. And when the heart stops, you stop breathing and your brain shuts down, and that's how we declare people dead. And that's why we give a time of death and we give them a note. And really, to be honest with you, until about 50 years ago, that was the point of death. So people become lifeless, motionless, the brain shuts down. But now through advances in medicine, we can actually bring people back to life even after they've gone beyond that threshold of death. And study what happens to them. And one of the interesting things, of course, is that the brain completely shuts down, as I said. But what's fascinating is that the cells inside the body, and particularly the cells inside the brain, do not suddenly become annihilated. They go through a process of decay that can take a few hours, which is why we can actually medically bring people back to life after they have technically gone beyond that threshold of death for tens of minutes, if not hours of time afterwards. And that, of course, raises many interesting questions about what happens when we die.
So tell me more about this study. How did you conduct it? And tell me about, how you came about reaching your findings, your conclusion.
So I'm just sharing that, friends and family. How do I get out of this? Because I want you guys to understand what's happening. Why is this? There we go. Hey, I did it. Aren't you guys proud of me for learning all these new skills? All right. Hot mic catches Xi and Putin discussing organ transplants and immortality. This is just the other day, 6 days ago. Chinese president, Russian president have been overheard discussing organ transplants as a means of prolonging life on the sidelines of a military parade in Beijing. Putin's suggested even eternal life could be achievable as a result of innovations in biotechnology, according to a translation of remarks caught on the hot mic. The unguarded moment was captured on a live stream carried by the Chinese state TV. Standing shoulder to shoulder with North Korean and Russian leaders, Chinese president used his Victory Day spectacle to project an alternate vision of the future of the world order. However, their private conversations suggest their sights extend beyond economic and political. The exchange was relayed by a Mandarin translator for Putin and a Russian translator for, however you say XI, and has been translated into English by BBC. In the past, it used to be rare for someone to be older than 70, and these days they say that 70, one's still a child. An inaudible passage from Putin follows. His Mandarin translator then added, with the development of biotechnology, human organs can be continuously transplanted and people can live younger and younger and even achieve immortality. Predictions are this century, there's a chance of also living to 150 years old. Russian state news agency TASS quoted him as saying modern recovery methods, medical methods, even surgical ones dealing with the replacement of organs enable humanity to hope for active life to last longer than it does today. Wow. Of course, Iran was there, Pakistan was there, Vietnam was there. It's basically all of the West, all of their enemies in one place. And what are they talking about? What American mainstream media tells all of us is a conspiracy theory. I did a video for you guys the other day. It's not just the tech billionaires wanting to be immortal. It is a transhumanism movement. It is connected to the transgender movement, this fluidity of being whatever you want to be. They want people to be comfortable with that. All right, let's start talking. Okay, October 17th, 2024. Horrifying mistake to take organs from a living person was averted. So this gentleman, TJ Hoover, had a drug overdose. They like to do that with people who've had drug overdoses. Okay. Why? Because they come in, they say, oh, either their heart stopped beating and now we're having to keep them alive, or their brains are dead from the drugs because they're in a coma. And then they add more drugs into the body of the person who's taken all these street drugs. And then when they cut the machines off to test to see if they're going to be able to breathe on their own, of course they can't. Overdoses don't allow that. Hospitals can overdose you too. They did it quite a bit with the C people in there on respirators. They go in. This actually happened. Let me stop right here and tell this story. My husband's best friend at the time, this black gentleman, he never took any kind of medication, not even Tylenol. He caught C, goes to the hospital. He's got double pneumonia. They put him on that R drug. You guys can drop it in comments. I can't say it. I'll never get paid. By the way, if you'd like to buy me a coffee, gallon of gas, or help us pay for the expenses of staying in New Orleans during surgery, please look in the top of comments or purchase our book, but I don't get proceeds from that till almost next year. He goes to the hospital. They put him on a respirator. They give him Valium. They give him Versed. They give him Dilaudid. They give him all these medications. Well, when they decided to take him off the machine, they did not detox him for 24 hours prior to stopping the machine. He's on all these medications that repress your ability to breathe. So they go in, they cut the machine off. Well, he couldn't breathe. I call that murder. Natasha Miller says she was getting ready to do her job preserving donated organs for transplantation when the nurses wheeled the donor into the operating room. She quickly realized something wasn't right. Though the donor had been declared dead, he seemed to her very much alive. He was moving around, kind of thrashing around on the bed. And then when we went over there, you could see he had tears. He was crying, you guys. The donor's condition alarmed everyone in the operating room at Baptist Hospital in Richmond, Kentucky, including the two doctors who refused to participate in the organ retrieval. Thank God, because there are a lot of doctors that do not refuse. The procuring surgeon was like, I'm out. I don't want anything to do with this. It was very chaotic. Everyone was very upset. Miller says she overheard the case coordinator at the hospital for her employer, Kentucky Organ Donor Affiliates, CODA, call her supervisor for advice. This is how bad it is. Okay, you know what? This person is visibly crying and thrashing. He's dead respirator. I don't want to die. And the CODA coordinator decides they need advice. The hell? Are you kidding me? So the coordinator called the supervisor, and he was telling her they needed to find another doctor, that they were going to do this case, find someone else. The organ retrieval was canceled, praise God, but some CODA workers say they later quit. They quit. I've dedicated my life to organ donation and transplant. It's very scary to me now that these things are allowed to happen and there's not more in place to protect the donor. Instead, you've got donor nonprofits, not NGOs, and you've got the rich people in there trying to get our elected officials to loosen up the regulations. It says here she was not originally assigned to that operating, but she thought she might get drafted, so she began to review the case notes. She became alarmed when she read that the donor showed signs of life when doctors tried to examine his heart. He had woken up during his procedure that morning for a cardiac catheterization because he was thrashing on the table. Why? Because they didn't give him any pain medicine and it hurt him. Morton says that's when they sedated the patient. That's everybody's worst nightmare, right? Being alive during surgery and knowing that someone's going to cut you open and take your body parts out. And they don't like to give them a lot of medicine, friends and family of the internet, because they don't want the organs to have that stuff in it. So if you're allowing this to happen, just know your family member might have felt something. So it goes on and says, TJ had appeared to open his eyes and look around. He was being wheeled from intensive care to the operating room. It was like it was his way of letting us know, hey, I'm still here. But one of the people, several of the people that worked on this case had to go to therapy. I guess so. So the Federal Health Resources and Service Administration, which helps oversee organ procurement, said in a statement, it is investigating these allegations. Some people involved in the case, they have unanswered questions. Okay, so I'm just telling you right now. Of course, CODA's like the organ, this was not accurately represented. Okay. Okay. It says accusations that emerged in the congressional hearing in September undermined trust in organ donation and has led to a drop in people signing up to be donors. Here's the second case. I told you there's two I found. Lucky to be alive. U.S. woman wakes up from a coma just seconds before doctors begin organ harvesting. If she was under anesthesia and pain medication and paralysis medicine like they use for regular surgery, she couldn't have woken up. So that's why I'm telling you, if you know somebody that's had their organs donated, if they weren't fully dead, then they felt what was happening. I don't mean to scare you guys or be morbid. I'm just trying to wake people up, man. She was also homeless. In a case that raises urgent ethical, medical, and systematic questions, a woman in New Mexico narrowly escaped having her organs harvested while she was still alive. Oh my gosh. It says her case exposes disturbing gaps in the U.S. organ donation system and has sparked a nationwide debate about the protocols followed when a patient is declared beyond recovery. This is the problem. The protocols either are not being implemented correctly, like doctors are not having a second person there, and then you have to worry. If this is the doctor is being paid for by either the hospital, so it may be a doctor that has seen this patient before and has some kind of emotional connection and will do their best, or is the doctor being paid for by CODA, the Kentucky organ people? You know, who's paying the doctor, man? Does he get paid if the procedure doesn't happen? If that's so, he may push forward because we all know our doctors are dying of debt. It says here she was 38. She was homeless and suffered a still unnamed medical crisis in 2022. She fell into a coma and was admitted to Presbyterian Hospital in Albuquerque, New Mexico. First off, that whole sentence raises the hair on the back of my neck. She was 38. She was homeless and she suffered a still unnamed medical crisis. where she fell into a coma. Maybe she was put into a coma. I'm just saying. You have to start thinking like they think. You know what I'm saying? Be wise as a serpent and as innocent as a dove. The doctors told her family her condition was irreversible. She would never regain consciousness. With no apparent hope left, they made the heartbreaking decision to donate her organs. And in stepped New Mexico Donor Services, the Organ Procurement Organization, OPO. So now we have Kentucky, New Mexico. They're all dirty. It's all about the money. I don't care how much they make you feel so special because you need an organ. Yeah. Designated to coordinate the logistics of organ harvesting, but in days leading up to the planned surgery, something didn't feel right. According to her family, Danella showed subtle but unmistakable signs of life. They noticed tears running down her cheeks, a second person crying. Why? Because the last thing to go is your hearing. These people hear these doctors talking about what they're fixing to do to them. When they brought this to the donation coordinator's attention, they were told it was nothing more than a reflex. Just reflex to cry when you're brain dead. Okay. On the day of the scheduled operation, one of her sisters claimed that Danella moved when she held her hand. That alone should have raised immediate red flags. But the real shock came when the medical staff observed Gallego blinking in response to verbal commands, an act that clearly suggested consciousness and awareness. Despite, let me say that one more time, despite these signs, in other words, we don't care, the organ donation coordinator present in the operating room allegedly encouraged the doctors to go forward. They said, administer morphine and complete the surgery. So in other words, I was right when I said these people are having their organs removed without pain medication. That is horrific to me. I don't care if they're supposedly brain dead or not. What the hell, man? The human body, the brain is a mystery. You don't know what your loved one is feeling. Against pressure from the donation organization, the physicians canceled the operation. Praise God. Praise God. That move saved her life. In time, she moved from her coma and ultimately made a full recovery. In response to growing scrutiny, New Mexico Donor Services denied any wrongdoing. It claimed it does not interfere in clinical decision-making and emphasized that only hospitals are responsible for patient care. However, the Presbyterian Hospital painted a totally different picture. They asserted that New Mexico Donor Services oversees all aspects of the donation process. So they come in, they do the testing to see if you're a match. They do the testing to see if you're alive. They do everything. Soon, what you're going to see happen in response to hospital doctors refusing to go forward with the surgery, you're going to see quiet legislation passed that allows these donor organizations to send their own doctors and medical staff in to retrieve the organs. And when that happens, there'll be no good doctors to stop you from being cut open alive. All they care about is getting their organs. It's aggressive and it's sickening. This back and forth has laid bare the uncomfortable tension between medical ethics and the demand for transplantable organs. Wow. Because viable organs have a short shelf life, timing is everything. The most ethically thorny donations happen when it's under the classification of donation after circulatory death, DCD. Unlike brain death, where all brain death activity has irreversibly ceased, patients in DCD state may still have limited brain function, are typically removed from life support before organ removal begins. Doctors wait until the heart has stopped beating for at least 5 minutes before they can begin the transplant process. Yeah. In 2024, the DCD cases made up for 1/3 of all organ donations. If you're in the United Kingdom, you have to opt out. You can't opt in, you have to opt out. In other words, if you don't do what they want you to do to opt out, when you die, your organs, or God forbid, have a heart attack or go brain dead, they're coming for your organs. Wow. No, this is not okay. Seeing growing exodus. State organ donor registries urge perspective. This was August 13th, 2025. More than 5,000 people have removed themselves from California's organ donor registry as part of an escalating national shift in the wake of federal scrutiny and reporting by the New York Times. Donate Life California, a nonprofit that managed the state's official organ, eye, and tissue donor registry, recorded 5,423 removals between July 20th and Sunday, including a record 841 people on July 22nd, 2 days after the Times published a pair of articles on premature attempts to retrieve organs from patients who showed signs of life. Okay, first off, I have a real problem with a nonprofit organization being in control of the state's organ and tissue donor registry. Because we all know that nonprofit does not mean I get rich. We all know that, right? I've done plenty of videos on it. Go watch them. Being a nonprofit means that you're just not paying taxes. In fact, probably the people that sit on the Donate Life California, you have to look it up. The people that are like, the VP and the president, they probably make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. So most of the money they get goes to their employees and their lifestyles. But I have a problem with this because if a nonprofit's in control, then if I come in and donate $100,000 to your nonprofit where you can keep your salary that year, I'm pretty sure somehow you're going to move me to the top of the list. It says, the coverage prompted the Association of Organ Procurement Organizations, a trade group of 46 of 55 federally designated nonprofit entities that help facilitate donations. This is bad, y'all. It's all a moneymaker. It's all a moneymaker. It says donation is always a personal choice, but it's important to understand that one yes on the registry could save up to 8 lives and heal or improve the lives of many more. Also, one yes on the registry could mean a premature death for you, a very painful death where some psychotic Nazi-trained doctor slices and dices while you lay on the table with no pain medication and alive and aware, and your life's being stolen from you. Not to mention all these missing children in the United States. I started with a Chinese doctor talking about removing organs from children. Yeah. I told you what the WHO said. 10% of all human trafficking is regulated and happens because of organs. There's even something called it's like it's where people travel. It's called the let me see if I can find the article. And then, the House members highlight horrific organ harvesting of aborted babies. They even take it from the babies. If you go look, taxation and revenue, New Mexico, the tax.newmexico.government, Santa Fe, is talking about how the MVD celebrates Donate Life Month, encouraging their employees to have people sign up for organ donation. Then I found one that talked about traveling, how people travel just to get organs. There's like a whole thing for that. And then brain death is a fictitious concept that was created just for organ trade. That no one is ever fully brain dead. If the body's still, organs are still working, you're still breathing, especially on your own. So to my knowledge, they can't do it. You have to be on a respirator. But in that case, no, I'm not okay with it, friends and family. I wanted to share what I found earlier for y'all, though. Let me find this real quick. I took a picture of it. I was so shocked. Hold on, give me one second. Here it is. Recent discoveries of organs in shipping containers. Rose Hill Park, Sutton, London, date July 25th, 2024. A container was found containing what appeared to be human or animal organs. The Metropolitan Police secured the area and set up forensic tent for examination. Sri Lanka, part of Colombia, authorities discovered human remains mixed with recyclable materials in 111 shipping containers. The containers had been arriving over 2 years, and the UK government launched an investigation into the illegal export of hazardous material July of 2019. I just wanted to share that. Don't tell me it doesn't happen. There's a lot of money to be made. Please pray about supporting us, guys. Even if you would just send $1, if you'll add your email address, I'll get you on the newsletter and invite you to when we do Zooms. But if all 100, almost 5,000 people send $1, you never have to hear me ask again, because videos like this is probably what's going to keep me from getting remonetized. So I have to make a decision. I either give what you guys want to watch, or you guys get in the boat and help me continue just to make videos and not care about monetization. But it is my job to be a Proverbs woman, and everything my hands touch must prosper. So I love you guys so very much. Be blessed. Talk to you later.